Hey, it's Mazzy here, and thanks for coming back and watching again. Another ranking video. This one is really exciting for me, and this is the hardest one I've done in terms of ranking them, because how can you rank and compare music and rate it? It's not really about that, but I think it's a fun exercise for me. These are records I know so well. These are 25 records, my favorite 25 records from the San Francisco sound, the sound of San Francisco in the 1960s. Now, for the sake of this video, I've narrowed it down only records in the 60s from 67, 68, and 69, sort of, in and around and beyond the Summer of Love, the psychedelic bands, the bands that were playing the Fillmore and the Avalon and playing in Golden Gate Park and around the Bay Area, and Winterland also. All these records, except maybe for one or two, I bought at the time, and this was a big part of me growing up. I got into these records from 13, 14, 15-year-old. That's how my age, how I was when these records came out. And if you're new to my channel, I'm from San Francisco. I'm native, born on the edge of the Haight-Ashbury. And so I was there at the right time, at the right place to enjoy this music, to see some of these bands live in the park. And there's a lot of earlier videos that I did that I really was San Francisco heavy, because it's a city I love, the city I lived in most of my life, and I just left there in 2014 and I moved to Seattle here. So without further ado, from 25 backwards, number 25, It's a Beautiful Day. David LaFlame led band. He played violin. Of course, the hit on here, if you call it a hit, that was played everywhere, at least on the FM radios, at least in the Bay Area, is Whitebird. Majestic song, soothing violins. David LaFlame and Patty Santos, harmony vocals. Of course, Linda LaFlame, his wife, is on piano and organ. And just a great, what a beautiful cover this is. They also had a song on here, Hot Summer Day, which got some airplay too, but they never really, they had several albums, but they never really kind of went beyond that. But they were a staple in all the ballrooms in the day, and this is a great album. Coming in at number 25, It's a Beautiful Day. Coming in at number 24, Dan Hicks and a Hot Licks, the early recordings, original recordings. Now, they recorded this in 1969. This might have been released a little later, once they hit Blue Thumb Records. And they were another band that had a violin player, Sid Page. What's great about Dan Hicks and Hot Licks, they had a retro sound, a little bit of a jazzy sound, a country swing sound, a little cowboy music at a time. Dan Hicks was an original member of the San Francisco or the Bay Area band, the Charlatans, which played the ballrooms all the time, also played up in the Gold Coast country. They were more infamous than not. They had an album on Phillips record that is not a very good record, and he played in the Charlatans. But Dan Hicks and the Hot Licks would record a number of wonderful records, including a live album called Where's the Money for Blue Thumb Records, produced by Tommy LaPuma. And what a great band. This coming in at number 23. 23 is Boz Scaggs' debut album. Now, this was recorded in the Muscle Shoals with the great guitar playing of Duane Allman right there. In fact, the long version, 12-minute, almost 13-minute version of Loan Me a Dime is just a sublime electric guitar, bluesy song. His singing is great. Blue-Eyed Soul singer, of course, everyone knows him later for Slow Dancer and Soak Degrees, but he was a member. He came from Texas to San Francisco with Steve Miller, was on the first Steve Miller Band albums. And this is an important album. Only album he did for Atlantic Records. It's there's a Jimmy Rogers song, Waiting for a Train, on here. Really good record. Doesn't have the sound of San Francisco, but he was in San Francisco living. He was part of the San Francisco scene. I believe he still lives most of the time in San Francisco. Really a wonderful record. Not like the slick soul, Blue-Eyed Soul he would do later, so it's a whole different take on it. And if you like bluesy, psychedelic, Allman Brothers, but more, just really great vocals and in a way intimate, as much as it can be intimate. This Boz Scaggs record from 1969 is great, and it's my number 23rd best record. Coming in at number 22, After Bathing at Baxter's. Came out late 1967, the same year they put out Surrealistic Pillow. It was a follow-up to that, and people were perplexed because it's a wacky record. It's an out there record. Some like this record as their best Jefferson Airplane record, who like the psychedelic on the avant-garde side. Although I think it holds together. There's some great songs. I think Two Heads, sung by Grace Slick, was a great single. There's some weird stuff going on in this album, as you can imagine. I don't know, Jefferson Airplane, around this time though, one of the best live bands of the San Francisco scene. And I'm not including, I almost included it, but I didn't include Bless His Pony Little Head. That's their live album from 1968. One of the best live albums of the San Francisco scene. And it just shows how tight they were as an Airplane, as a band. Their rhythm section of Spencer Dryden on drums and Jack Cassidy, great bass player, probably the best bass player of these San Francisco bands, in my opinion. Incredible live record. I didn't include that, but it should be in here. That's from 1968, I believe. But After Bathing at Baxter's, out there record, but it's rewarding if you take the time. Coming number 21, Sons of Champlin, double album. The only San Francisco band of the time in the 60s with a horn section. Obviously Tower Power, the soul fused band would come in the 70s. This came out almost exactly the same time as Chicago Transit Authority. Of course, that had the bigger hits. They went on to fame and fortune. Bill Champlin, actually, ironically, would later go on to be one of the vocalists in the later Chicago records. Great double album, psychedelic, jazzy, vibraphones, horns. There's a song, a 15-minute song on the entire side 4. It's called Freedom. A song called Get High, with great vibraphone, but very jazzy, very soulful, but very psychedelic too. So coming in at number 21, Loosen Up Naturally, the debut album by the Sons of Champlin. 20. Number 20 is a group that a lot of people don't associate with San Francisco. They did come from the East, the East Coast folk scene in a way, and that's the Youngbloods. And this is, I think, their best album. Of course, everyone knows the anthem, Get Together, Come On People Now, Smile on Your Brother, written by Chet Powers, who his real name was Dino Valenti, who would on and off be a part of Quicksilver Messenger Service. But this album, Elephant Mountain, is a beautiful kind of rock, folky fusion of jazz and rock and roll. I saw them a lot playing in the Bay Area around 1970, 71. This album has 2 standout songs, but the whole album is really wonderful. Darkness, Darkness, a song that was later in the last decade, I think, covered by Robert Plant on one of his records. And of course, it also has a great song called Quicksand. Ride the Wind as well, and kind of jammy, kind of jazzy too. So really good record. Coming in number 20, Elephant Mountain by the Youngbloods. 19, I know a lot of people would probably rate this higher, but these are all great records. So, I mean, it's really unfair to compare. But the debut Grateful Dead record, Warner Brothers record, of course, most people love their live music, their live recordings, their live shows. But when I first heard The Golden Road to Unlimited Devotion, I was hooked, got this record, and just fell in love with this record. Cream Puff Wars on here, Viola Lee Blues, new Minglewood Blues, Sitting on Top of the World, Cream Puff War, psychedelic, bluesy. Of course, Pigpen was a big part of pushing that blues, and I love his organ on this that they would not have after he left in the same way. They'd continue, obviously, with the various piano players, but this debut album is great. So Grateful Dead coming in at number 19. Number 18. Is this the beginning of heavy metal? Power Trio, Blue Cheer, number 18. Now, of course, Power Trio, we had Cream. There were several other, but Cream wasn't doing what Blue Cheer did. They were so loud, some of their music they had to record outside because they were too loud for the studio. But of course, their cover of Summertime Blues made it to the top 40, at least in the Bay Area. Great band. The heaviest record, probably first heaviest record I ever bought. It's on Philips Records. Has a great song, Out of Focus, that our garage band did. It just was a great record. Rock Me Baby, Parchment Farm, great song by Mose Allison, the great jazz vocal piano player. So his version of that, this is really great. Coming in number 18, Number 17, Bayou Country, Creedence Clearwater Revival. I mean, Creedence Clearwater Revival was the hit factory of the Bay Area bands from El Cerrito, California, which is just across the Bay Bridge from San Francisco, just north of Berkeley, California. They recorded a lot of stuff was out of Fantasy Records in Berkeley. Great record. I mean, very swampy. You would never, if you listen to this band, which I'm sure you have, you know it, you would never think of them to being a San Francisco psychedelic band, where all the San Francisco bands were moody, and except for the Airplane Live, were ethereal, were psychedelic, seemed to be lazy. Not really. They were tight. They had just this great Stu Cook and Doug Clifford rhythm section, and that really held it together, where John Fogerty could do a swampy Southern blues-like vocalizing. Great 2-3 minute songs. You know, again, more hits than any other band from the Bay Area in the 60s. Great record. Bayou Country. Of course, Proud Mary is on here. That would become a staple in every hotel lounge throughout the 70s and 80s probably. But Creedence Clearwater, love this record. Coming number 17. Number 16, the debut of Santana. Great Latin rock fusion, Carl Santana record. His guitar playing is just amazing. Just so detailed, so sexy. Of course, they exploded on the scene from their performance in Woodstock with the great drumming of the young Michael Shreve at the time. Great record. Now, I'm not including Abraxas because that was 1970, so it's not part of this collection. But this debut album is an amazing record. Of course, they also had Greg Raleigh on piano organ, Jose Chapito Arias on timbales, Mike Carabello on conga, and Dave Brown on bass. Really tight outfit. Love this record. The first 3 records are perfect records. And then obviously they went off and did all the different things Carlos did. You know, Carlos wasn't a great songwriter, but he was a great interpreter of other people's songs. And Evil Ways on here. Is that the Tita Puente song? I think. Jingo, Soul Sacrifice was the song I believe they did at Woodstock that just brought the house down when I saw that movie when it came out in 1970. Great record, Santana's debut record. Coming number 15. Number 15, Steve Miller Band's second album, Sailor. Of course, Boz Scaggs is still in the band. Has a great song, Quicksilver Girl, which is a beautiful song. Now, the first 5 albums of theirs was produced by Glyn Johns. First couple recorded in London. Really great psychedelic blues music. Of course, I'm a fan of their first 5 records over their hit-making records when Steve Miller went on to do The Joker and Fly Like an Eagle. I like those records. I get tired of them. I like their more experimental, out there mix of these first 2 records. This is a perfect record. And this could switch off between this and Children of the Future for me, which one I like better. Children of the Future, you'll see later, made it higher just because. Oh, I don't know why. It's my pick today. This is a UK import, but I love this record. After this, Boz Scaggs would leave the band. Overdrive is a great song on here. Of course, Living in the USA would become a staple, radio staple. Someone Give Me a Cheeseburger. Do. Living in the USA. Steve Miller Band. Coming in number 14, the second album by Country Joe and the Fish. Band from Berkeley, California. Of course, Joe McDonald had one of the most beautiful voices of all the male singers on the San Francisco scene. A golden voice, folky. They came out of the folk scene a little bit, but moved into this sort of ragtag, almost funky. They didn't seem smooth. Their playing was sloppy, but they were really great. They had one of the best psychedelic records of this period. But this is their second record. Has a beautiful ballad love song called Janice that Joe wrote for Janis Joplin, who he was involved with for some point. Who Am I is really a great song. Eastern Jam. Now, Barry Melton doesn't get a lot of love as guitar players in this whole San Francisco scene in terms of technique. He had a real studded sound, but he did a lot of these Eastern style leads, like influenced by Ravi Shankar and Eastern music. So you hear these different patterns, minor keys. I think George Harrison did that a little bit. A lot of groups in this period of time, in 67, 68, were influenced by Eastern music and music from India and Pakistan. Great record. Of course, this record comes with the Fish Game. I cut many of these up and I replaced it when I worked in record stores, pulled it out of another copy. But and these were produced by Sam Charters, who was for Vanguard Records, but he produced and discovered and was sort of an archivist, a musicologist who discovered and rediscovered a lot of blues artists too in the 50s. But he did a great run of albums for Country Joe and the Fish. Even after this, Together, Here We Are Again, Here We Come Again, are good records. A lot of people don't regularly recognize those records. I did not include those others, but this is an incredible record. Coming in number 13, the great debut, just Creedence Clearwater Revival. Obviously, as I said earlier, the hit-making machine. Susie Q was all over the radio, as was their version of I Put a Spell on You. So they really started out doing these incredible long jams, but not as spacey like the Dead and some of the other bands, or even the Airplane at times. Even though the Airplane was tight, they were tighter in a minimal way. Not as, I guess they were psychedelic, but they seem more bluesy, swampy psychedelic. But those versions of I Put a Spell on You and Susie Q are just so great. 99 and a half. 1968 record. I saw them very soon after this came out, the first of two experiences I had with Creedence Clearwater. So coming in number 13, the great debut album by Creedence Clearwater Revival. Coming in number 12, Happy Trails. Oh God. One side live, one side in studio. Jamming of Who Do You Love and various variations on the Ellis McDaniel song, Who Do You Love? And they also do Mona, another song by Ellis McDaniels. Really good. This has some spacey stuff on it, and a lot of people consider this their best album. I think it's their second best album. And obviously, after this, Dino Valenti would get out of jail and start singing lead vocals. That's where, even though I kept with them for a while, but that whole echoey effect, and they became somewhat of a different band, and I fell out of love with Quicksilver Messenger Service. To me, these two records are their best records. Even though they had a hit with Have Another Hit of Fresh Air, I still would go for these first two records on Capitol Records. Quicksilver Messenger Service, Happy Trails. Of course, it ends with the great Dale Evans song, Happy Trails, 45 seconds worth. Coming in at number 11, Grateful Dead. Now, there's debate everywhere. What do you call this album? Axomoxa? That's what we called it when it came out, at least in the Bay Area. We didn't know. We didn't have Google. We didn't have anything else. Axomoxa, 1969, Axomoxa. Now, a rumor has it that, is it young Courtney Love is somewhere on this picture as a kid? I don't remember. You can write that. I don't remember that stuff. But this record spawned several songs that they would do almost their entire career. Of course, St. Stephen and China Cat, Sunflower. Very psychedelic, very moody, very spacey. Wasn't a big selling record, outside the Bay Area and maybe New York and a few other pockets around the country. They didn't have a hit record. They weren't selling a lot of records for Warner Brothers. But coming in number 11 for me is this great Grateful Dead record. Coming in at number 10, top 10 now. Children of the Future. I love this cover. Always fell in love with this cover. I bought this and the first Quicksilver Messenger Service album together at the same time, 1968. Produced by Glyn Johns in London, of course. Steve Miller, Boz Scaggs, Tim Davis, Lonnie Turner, Jim Peterman. They were a great band. I really liked that band. Bluesy psychedelic. There's some really spacey psychedelic stuff on here. It meanders a little bit, but for me, it meanders in a beautiful way. I think this rates high for me because when I got it, it was one of those albums. I had my first pair of headphones. I would play this. There's so much going on. There's so much ethereal stuff, and it kind of then all of a sudden gets into some bluesy song like You've Got the Power or Children of the Future, and the harmonies. Steve Miller's harmonies are really great. So I love this song, and of course I love Baby's Calling Me Home, the song on here on side 2. that is sung by Boz Scaggs with that harpsichord in it. I just love that. So coming in number 10, Children of the Future, Steve Miller Band, Capitol Records. Coming in number 9, I mean, again, the hit factory continues. Some call this their best album. I can't argue with that. It's got Green River. It's got Wrote a Song for Everyone, Bad Moon Rising, Lodi. Oh Lord, I'm Stuck in Lodi Again. Come on. Great record. Creedence Clearwater Revival, Green River. Coming at number 8. Now, for a lot of people, this would be higher, and I get that. And that's Moby Grape's debut album. This is the original stereo with the Flipping the Bird, famous cover photograph by Jim Marshall. I don't have it here, but I do have the poster. There was a poster of that came in the original copy. I think I have it in another copy. Fantastic record, powerful record. Omaha should have been a huge hit single, followed up by the beautiful ballad 805. 805 was written as they were driving across the Golden Gate Bridge, and the big clock over the Golden Gate Bridge said 805, and that's how the idea for the song came about. You didn't know that, did you? Maybe you did. Columbia fucked them over here. They released 5 singles at once in a kind of tour de force promo thing. They had a party, so radio stations didn't know what to do. I do like their follow-up, Wow, It's Grown on Me, and Grape Jam, that 2-record set, a combo that came out. I did not include it here. It just missed it, because that, to me, at the time was a disappointment, but it's grown in stature for me, at least. But this record is a powerful record. I mean, they had 3 guitar players plus a bass player. So you got to be powerful having 3 guitar players plus a bass player and a drummer. There you go. So that's coming in at number 8. Coming number 7, the debut album by Quicksilver Messenger Service. I friggin' love this record. Opens up with this great Pride of Man, a Hamilton Camp song. He was a folk singer. That was his song. They just turn that song on its head and make it this beautiful song. Again, as I said, John Cipollina's great kind of guitar playing. I love his guitar playing. To me, one of my favorite of the guitar players of the San Francisco scene of this period. He had this SG Gibson that he did this sort of growling sound sometimes on. They also do a song on here called Dino's Song for Dino Valenti, who was in the band, went to jail, came out for drug charges. Gold and Silver, which is in a way is Quicksilver's version of Dave Brubeck's Take 5, but a psychedelic, great guitar riff version of it. The last song, The Fool, like a 10-minute or so song that has all these great parts, great vocals, great guitar bits, great psychedelic jams. It's such a beautiful record. And of course, this could be one of my favorite record covers of the San Francisco scene. I mean, just the typeface and this whole thing, it really reflects the psychedelic poster, the art, the music of San Francisco. This is from 1968 on Capitol Records, the debut of Quicksilver Messenger Service. What a great band. Of course, I mean, also, it's got Greg Elmore on drums. Gary Duncan was the other great guitar player. Doesn't get a lot of notoriety in turn because Cipollina he had a really unique style, but the two of them together on some of these jams and watch some of the videos and shows are pretty great. And of course, David Freeberg, also on vocals, who would later join with the Airplane and Starship posse. So, point number 6. Jefferson Airplane Volunteers. I love this record. I think this has some of the best songwriting collectively of the band. It opens up with We Can Be Together, which is a beautiful sort of anthem. In fact, there's 2 anthems. Opens up with We Can Be Together, and it closes up with Marty Ballin's great Volunteers of America. Great anthems of the time, 1969. Of course, this 67, 68, 69, to me, the Jefferson Airplane are at their peak. They were great live. They were hot live. After that, they, hit and miss, got sloppy. I don't know, they got crazy, got whacked up a little bit. On here, of course, is great piano playing of Nicky Hopkins. Steve Still plays on here, Jerry Garcia, David Crosby. And I really like Wooden Ships on here. Wooden Ships is a song that was also done on the Crosby, Stills and Nash album. And that song was written by David Crosby, Paul Kantner, and Stephen Stills. And I like this version, I think, better because I like the various verses sung by Marty Ballin, Grace Slick, and Paul Kantner. It's so beautiful. Good Shepherd is a beautiful sort of gospel-y religious folk song, a cover that Jorma Kaukonen does on here. But really great record, I think. Very political. You know, the only record I know of that has a full peanut butter and sandwich in the gatefold. Coming number 5. An important record, Live Dead. Grateful Dead, Live Dead. This really changed things for the Dead. They weren't really selling a lot, but you know, it just shows that their live sets, it's what it was all about for them, what it became for them. They became so interesting. This is, you know, I probably listened more to Europe 72, but Europe 72, first of all, it's in the 70s, so it wouldn't be included here, but it also had the help of a lot of overdubs. Europe 72 has music and vocal overdubs. Not a bad thing, so it is a perfect record in terms of that, but this has, this to me is the record that epitomized what the Dead were about. Of course, since then, there are various sort of new reissues, Dead picks, Dix picks that have the entire shows from these concerts. But that's the Grateful Dead in the middle of Haight Street in San Francisco. I was fortunate enough to see them starting in 68, late 67 maybe, 68. Saw the Dead about 30 times. Love this band, love this record. And coming at number 5, I think this is a really important record to tell the story of San Francisco and the whole sound of San Francisco. Coming in at number 4, Willie and the Poor Boys. This is my favorite Creedence Clearwater. I know it's not everyone's favorite. There's something about this record, and I can't explain it, that just, it has a feel, has a recording, the acoustic guitars on it. Down on the Corner, what a great hit single, very simple. It came out of the sky, just burst. Cotton Fields, that great kind of soulful gospel song, great recording of that song. Poor Boy Shuffle, kind of a fun little instrumental. Feeling Blue. Now, side 2 opens up with Fortunate Son, one of the great anti-war songs of the 60s. So, Midnight Special, Side of the Road, Effigy, my favorite Creedence Clearwater record. Coming in number 4, obviously a lot of Creedence here. The hits keep coming with Creedence. Coming at number 3. This might be a lot of people's number 1 album of San Francisco, of the psychedelic sounds of San Francisco. From 1968, Cheap Thrills, Big Brother and the Holding Company, of course, featuring Janis Joplin, produced by John Simon. I love this record. I mean, I know John Simon wasn't a fan of the band Big Brother. They were sloppy. They didn't have a tightness, and apparently he worked wonders in the studio. But to me, I think she lost some of the soul when she went out with the Cosmic Blues Band afterwards, when they made her a solo act. This is a perfect record of the moment, of the time. It's psychedelic, it's soulful, it's got great covers of like Summertime. The Gershwin song, which is a beautiful song, opens up with combination of the two. Piece of My Heart, another great cover song. I mean, this had hits. This was a huge record. Clive Davis saw her at Monterey in 67 and signed them immediately. And this is pretty much a perfect record. Cheap Thrills, Big Brother and Holding Company, with a great cover by R. Crumb, the great comic book illustrator. I mean, what can I say? One of the great covers, obviously, in rock and roll as well. I know I said Quicksilver. I'll change my mind and put this number 1 of the San Francisco covers. Maybe the Grateful Dead too. So I changed my mind. See, within these rankings, I'm changing my mind. Number 2, electric music for the mind and body. Conjure the Fish. This is to me, this is the most psychedelic record of the San Francisco scene. I know technically, depending on how you define it, but when I was a kid, when I bought this record, this is the real deal. I mean, Flying High, Not So Sweet Martha Lorraine, was played on the radio. That and the Max Marauder were both played on the radio in San Francisco on KSAN, KMPX, KSAN radios. Section 43, Love. I mean, a great psychedelic album, great vocals, again, great Eastern style guitar playing, really a unique record. There was nothing quite like this. Really well recorded. Vanguard Records, again, produced by Sam Charters. Number 2 in my rankings of the San Francisco psychedelic albums. Now, number one's the obvious choice, but it had to be. I kept going back and forth. Do I want to be, do I want to be hip? Do I want to be clever and shake it up and, something you wouldn't even consider? But to me, this is one of the most important records of 1967. Of course, there's Sgt. Pepper, there's the first Doors album, there's Jimi Hendrix debut, but this album, 1967, I got this album for my bar mitzvah. What a great record. I mean, first of all, they were the first band to get signed. 66 takes off, and then of course this album, Grace Slick joins the band from the Great Society and brings two songs, White Rabbit and Somebody to Love. Whatever you think, if they're overplayed or not, White Rabbit's a great song. It's a great kind of Eastern, psychedelic, meandering, get high, take mushrooms, do some acid type of song. Beautiful. Who would have thought that record would be a huge, huge hit? But Somebody to Love to me is the one. When the truth is found to be lies and all the joy within you dies, don't you want somebody to love? The way those lyrics, they seem so simple, but they're so, so great. Of course, She Has Funny Cars, the great Spencer Dryden's drumming that opens up that song. My Best Friend was another hit, the great Marty Ballin song, his singing on that. Coming Back to Me, there's a great folkness also. This is folk psychedelia. How Do You Feel? And a White Rabbit, Plastic Fantastic Lover with the great bass opening. What another great Marty Ballin song that closes out the album. 3/5 of a Mile in 10 Seconds is an explosive song. It shows that this is a friggin' great band. They're no like lazy saps. When the Jefferson are playing, they had 3 years, probably. 3 tight years. Listen to some of those recorded. Let's go back and listen to Bless His Point Head, that live album. It just kicks ass. Maybe in the 70s they got sloppy and lazy and Papa John Creech and all that, violin stuff that kind of brought it back a notch, or a couple notches definitely. But also, one of the most perfect instrumentals on here, Jorma Kaukonen's Embryonic Journey. Every time I listen to that record, the recording of Embryonic Journey on here, I'm in awe of his playing. Number 1 record of my choice of rankings of the San Francisco psychedelic albums is Jefferson Airplane, Surrealistic Pillow. Love this record. Every record here is fantastic. So if you don't know these records, check them out, seek them out, listen to them. I mean, not everyone's going to love everything. Just enjoy them. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. Tell me your San Francisco records. Don't sneak into 1970, and don't, just enjoy it. Mazzy loves you. Be sure to wear some flowers in your hair.